Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to go from beginner to expert with one of the most powerful tools on the internet right now, ChatGPT. Once you master this, it's honestly like having a team of geniuses who just work for you all the time. And AI is changing rapidly, so whether you've never used it or if you use it every day, I believe this video will show you some new ways to unlock ChatGPT's full potential and incrementally upgrade your life. So in this video, I have 16 prompts that gradually increase in complexity from a simple beginner command all the way to some really advanced stuff that you could use to become a real power user. So perhaps this could save you money by not needing to hire an expert. Maybe this can make a contract if you're a landlord. This could help you find some recipes to save some food in your fridge that you're otherwise going to throw away. Or maybe you could use this to, write songs that you're going to play at an open mic or anything like that. So this is extremely powerful. And even as somebody who has used it every single day since it came out, I'm still often surprised by what it can do. So to get started, you're going to go to chatgpt.com, hit enter. It'll take you to a page that looks something like this. I recommend creating an account so that you can access this from other devices and it can remember everything you've done for future references. So you can do that by clicking login or sign up on the top right, and you can sign in with your email, or you could sign up just by connecting, your Microsoft account, Apple account, Google account, whatever works for you. Now, I already have an account, so I'm going to switch over to that in another tab here. All right, so once you sign in, it's going to look something like this. We have a box in the middle that says ask anything. And so the first example, the first prompt would be a very simple fact retrieval. So maybe I could say, what do sloths eat? And it'll just give me an answer of, what sloths eat. They're herbivores and stuff like that. And it's going to show you the answers in the middle here. And now I can ask follow-up questions on that. But if I want to change the topic, maybe I want to ask about plants, but I don't really want to talk about sloths anymore, I can have a new conversation. All the conversations are listed on the left side here. So as you use this more and more, you'll have a very long list. And if you want to make a new one, on the top, you can click on this little new chat icon. That'll bring you into that same interface where we can start a new chat again. A few things to note about ChatGPT: it is online, so it's up to date with relevant information. You can ask it about current events and things like that. Second thing, it used to be bad at things like math. It's getting significantly better at mathematics. So if you want to ask questions about math, you totally can, but I recommend, double checking it if you're asking like wave equations for quantum, for example. It can, more advanced math, it's more likely to have some errors. Another thing, so let's go back to that first example I had. If you don't like the responses, we have a couple things on the bottom. So for one, we can copy this. If we like this and we want to paste it in a Word document, for example, we can give some feedback to the model and say, hey, that was a good response or that was a bad response. We can have it read that aloud to us. We can edit in Canvas. I'll talk about Canvas later. Or if you're like, actually, I didn't specify what I wanted, you can go up here, click on the edit message, and we could say, what do two-toed sloths eat? Maybe we want to be more specific here, and we can say send. It's going to create a new response. But again, if we don't like this response, I can click on the little switch model button and just say try again. It'll try again with the same model here and give us a slightly different response. And we can toggle between the responses with the 1 out of 2 or 2 out of 2 with the left and right arrow. So this is particularly useful later on in the video when we're making images, but even for now, a useful feature to know about. And another thing to note is that if you ever want to search the web, the way you use Google, you can click on search right there. It's going to search the web, and I could say sloth blog. I could just say a sloth blog. It'll find something on the web and it'll link it out for me right here. So it'll give me some summaries of different things as well as links. You can see these little links right here. So Wikipedia, people.com, the Sloth Institute. And so I can click on them, maybe like the Sloth Institute. We can click on that and it'll bring us over to the slothinstitute.org. So a good way to get links if you're trying to find things. So if you're trying to find websites, that little search button is going to be very useful. So prompt number 1, which is simple fact retrieval. Getting a little bit more advanced though to something that you can't ask on Google search necessarily. Let's say you're trying to think of something. It's on the tip of your tongue. You can't remember a word. And you just say like, I'm blanking on a word that like, it's kind of like this thing. Sometimes they use it to describe a bird. What is the word I'm thinking of? And it's able to take the context of that. And even though you don't have key words, this is really understanding what you're talking about. So you can see the responses right here. It has a couple ideas and like, oh, there it is. I was thinking of cardinal. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. And there we go. Moving along to something slightly more complex, we can actually modify how it's going to be giving us the responses. So you could ask it things like, explain electricity to me like I'm 5. Or even better than that, you could have it make analogies and comparisons. So I could say, please explain electricity and circuits to me, related to kayaking. Maybe I'm really into kayaking. I can hit enter, and this is going to really kind of give you some type of analogy that makes sense there. So the river is like the circuit, voltage is like the slope of the river, like how fast your flow is going to be current, different things like that. This could be really useful in explaining things in a way that really makes sense to you specifically. And with ChatGPT, you can actually ask it follow-up questions, as I mentioned before, because it does remember the context of your previous question. So I could say, okay, but why is the steepness of the river causing it to be more powerful? And then again, that modifier, please explain it to me like I'm 5. And one more note on the modifiers here, it doesn't have to just be, using analogies or talk to me like I'm this. You could ask it to be a certain person. You could say, speak in the voice of, like, let's say we're going to write a comment about Mike's ChatGPT tutorial in the voice of, and like you can try this yourself if you're following along, ask it for like your favorite celebrity, musician, artist, whatever. So I'm going to say Abe Lincoln. All right, that's pretty funny. So, I mean, if you guys did this, feel free to like drop a comment down below. I want to see what these actually look like. And let me know which voice you used as the modifier for this one. So like I said, you could have it like Dave Chappelle or anyone you want. All right, so I'm going to start a new chat. I want to show you another feature right here. So number 4 is going to be making a list, and you can make lists, for example, of maybe you're trying to come up with a business name, 30 fictitious business names that are between 4 and 10 letters long, easily pronounceable. I spelled pronounceable wrong, but it's okay. You can spell things wrong and ChatGPT still usually knows what you mean. And you can also say available.com domain. But before we do this, another little cool trick that you have is called temporary. Now, it doesn't really make sense in this example, but sometimes you're researching things that you don't want that context to influence future chats you have with ChatGPT. And so it's going to not remember this. It's going to essentially be like an incognito mode for your ChatGPT. So I can hit enter here. It's going to come up with 30 fictitious names that should be pronounceable. Let's see what it does. So yeah, it's got quite a few that I've never heard of. I think Trezor is a real one. Some of these might be real. You want to double check them, obviously, but this is a good way to brainstorm, coming up with a really long list, for example. And you could do this with so many different things. It can make lists of 30 for just about anything you want. 30 crockpot meals, 30 different exercises that use biceps, 30 different list prompts you could ask ChatGPT. All right, so let's open up a new chat. We're on to number 5 now. So this is going to be modifying text that you've actually written. So let's go with the intro of this video. So I'm just going to paste the intro right there. And now below that, I'm going to say, please rewrite this. And I could have it translate to another language. I could have it rewrite it more condensed. I could have just say, rewrite this and don't plagiarize. And it's a good way to kind of rewrite some things. If you have, if you have some writer's block, you're writing a long email, you're writing, anything you're writing, you can just say, hey, redo this and just kind of get a different idea of other ways to say this. You can also say, hey, why don't you add a quote or do something like that to this? Number 6 is going to be using step-by-step instructions with interactive memory. So for this, I actually find it most useful to use the voice mode. So if I click on voice mode, by the way, you can do this on the mobile app or on your laptop. So for voice mode, I'm just going to say, hey, how's it going, ChatGPT? I have carrots and celery and potatoes and some chicken breasts and some beef, some ground beef, and some chicken stock and a couple other like basic ingredients in my pantry, including some noodles and some rice. What's a good thing I can make for dinner?
Hey, Mike. Sounds like you've got a great mix of ingredients. How about a hearty chicken and vegetable soup? You can use the chicken breasts, carrots, celery, potatoes, and chicken stock. Add some noodles or rice to make it heartier. Season it with salt, pepper, and maybe some herbs like thyme or bay leaves.
So I want to maybe add onions. Like I think I have an onion somewhere. Would onions go well in that or no?
Definitely. Onions would be a great addition. They add a nice depth of flavor to the soup. Just dice them up and saute them with the carrots and celery before adding the chicken and stock. It'll give the soup a nice, savory base.
Okay, and I want to make this a crock pot meal. Can you just give me a full recipe of this exact meal for a crock pot?
Sure, here's a simple crock pot chicken and vegetable soup recipe. 1. Dice 2 chicken breasts.
So when you're done, just click on the X and you'll see the entire conversation we had is going to be right here. And you can also continue on this. So you could say, please add more detail. And it'll just, continue with what you did and write a longer recipe so you can actually have like, how many servings, how many calories, different things like that, all on that. So that's a cool feature that does exist on ChatGPT now. Now, before we get into the really cool ones, which I would say is the second half of this video, one more that I want to mention is going to be a multi-constraint prompt. So you can ask it to really do a lot of things within a certain box. And that's something you really can't do on a traditional search. So you could say, compare the new Tesla Model 3 and the Toyota RAV4 plug-in hybrid in a song written by the style of Bob Dylan, add a relevant quote from Obama and another one from Larry Bird. Like a really tight constraint that you're never going to find a blog that does that. But if for some reason that's what you're looking for, this is exactly what it's able to do. Now, it doesn't have to be a song. It could just be, write a little description and use analogies and do stuff like that. But adding those multiple constraints really does allow you to modify exactly what you're getting back from this. Yeah, I'd say that's actually quite impressive. That's definitely what I was looking for. New chat, and getting into some really interesting and really impressive ones. Number 8 is going to be image generation. So we can ask ChatGPT to make an image, and I recommend being as specific as possible for this. You can make images in different styles, photorealistic, maybe like a watercolor style, maybe a crayon style, something like that. So I'm going to say make a marketing image. So maybe I want to use this to sell a product on the internet, and it's going to be a supplement bottle. And I could have some really exact things like come up with a good name for this, what it's going to be, what else is going to be in the image, and let's see what it comes up with. I mean, look at that. Like that's absolutely incredible that it's able to do that. But it's not done yet. You can actually modify this even further. So this is going to work as if you had a graphic designer, which, by the way, this right here would have taken you a graphic designer, a photographer to get all of that going, and also like, the ideation of coming up with the name of it and everything. Like, this is really impressive that it just did that based on a single prompt. But like I said, you can interact with this, but you can actually say, hey, let's change that background to a light orange. Maybe instead of that whitish color, maybe I want it to be a slightly light orange. You could also have it instead make it, transparent. You can download this as a PNG with a transparent background. Now, one thing to note, you're probably not going to see this often, but sometimes ChatGPT gives you 2 responses just for its own feedback, and then you can select which one's better. All right, so we have 2 very slight differences in the image. Really just this is a little darker and this is a little bit lighter. So we can choose which one we like. Maybe I could say I like this response better, and I could say I prefer this response. Now we have that in there. One thing to note, if you're ever going back and you want to edit like the prompt up here, it's going to delete everything after that. So I recommend not doing it in that sense. Like, you don't want to go back and change this prompt up here unless you're okay with losing this one. And when you like these images, we can just click on download. So click on download right there, and I could download it, and just use this anywhere I need to, being that we have this image right now. We can also upload images and ask it to modify those. I'll talk about that a little bit later in one of the upcoming prompts. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, you can actually use this pretty heavily for any kind of coding. So even if you know nothing about coding, you can ask it to help you start coding an app, or maybe something in command line, or start off a lot simpler and just set up some essential code. So I got to say I need this right here. It's going to give me essentially the formula we can use in Excel, and it shows up in this little prompt box right here. So that really makes it a lot easier. I can just copy this, or just click on copy and then paste that into my Google Sheets or my Excel spreadsheet, and it should work just fine. If it doesn't, which by the way, it's nice that it explains what everything is. If it doesn't, you can always troubleshoot it right here and say, hey, this happened. Also, by the way, it also gives you another version down here. So we have 2 options there. But you could say, hey, it didn't work right. This is the error it gave me, or something like that. And it's able to debug and troubleshoot directly in here. Prompt number 10 is actually a multi-prompt chain with dynamic interaction, where you tell ChatGPT to be a specific thing. So I could say, you're my personal fitness coach. Ask me a bunch of questions. This is my goal, and then make a plan for me. And this is going to give you an interactive conversation with ChatGPT, where it's going to say, okay, like, how much do you weigh right now? What are you trying to do? What is your training history? Different things like that. So we can answer these questions. All right, so I answered the questions. It's going to kind of build out a plan for me now. And whenever I'm done, I can ask it to export this as a PDF. All right, there we go. We have a PDF. I can click on it. It'll download it. I can save it right here, and then I can actually check that out. Let's view a little sample of that. There's the full PDF. They got rid of the emojis, which I think is really nice and clean, and I can print this out. I have it. I'm ready to go to the gym, and I have my full plan right here. Now that brings me into number 11, which kind of ties in with that a little bit. Let's say I want to make a lease as a landlord. There's this cool feature called Canvas. If I click on View Tools, I can go to Canvas. And now I can add this full prompt. I'm going to say, I'm going to make a legal contract. I'm charging somebody to live in the other half of a house that I potentially own here. And I could say, enter. And it's going to open a canvas. It's kind of a different format. You'll see in just a second. It makes the full lease. So there you go. It opened it up automatically. You can see the lease on the left side. All the prompts are going to show up here. But the cool thing about Canvas is that it is interactive. So the reason I choose Canvas for something like a lease like this is that I'm able to actually type into this once it's done. So it's going to generate the whole thing. There we go. So we have it. I can actually go to the top and enter the date. So I could say 12th day, even though today's not, it's the 17th. So you're able to edit, like I said right there. You can also use ChatGPT to edit things even further. So I can highlight this and I can ask ChatGPT and it rewrites it. There we go. Security deposit required of $500. So you're able to kind of work with this. And this is really useful, not only in creating contracts and things like that. Obviously consult a legal advisor before you use this stuff, but just for at least starting somewhere, it's pretty useful. But it's also useful for writing code, for example, where you can write everything, kind of debug within here and ask questions and ask it to add things. So instead of saying, rewrite the whole thing, but change that sentence. It's just a lot easier to highlight what you want changed and change it in here. And when you're done, again, you can either export, you can say generate a PDF, write that over on the left side, generate a PDF. It'll generate a PDF of this entire thing, and then we're ready to roll with that new thing. Without having all those weird blanks, we can fill it in and have it ready to go. All right, so let's close out of this, open our little panel again. Let's make a new conversation. And now number 12, this is really cool. You're able to interpret images that you send to ChatGPT. So I can paste an image right here that I just found on Google. We're going to call it my living room. And I'm going to say, please redesign, or please create an image that is a redesign of my living room in an Art Deco style. And you can see it's creating an image. Let's see what it does. So it's important to note, this is the first time we've added something that's not just text or my voice. There's other ways you can add files. You can upload documents, you can upload PDFs, you can upload spreadsheets, you can upload images, or you can copy and paste images into here. All right, so you can see we have the same furniture in there. We've got a lot of similarities. They just changed like the wallpaper and the curtains. A little bit dramatic, but kind of an interesting way to get different ideas for like interior design. But the real point is that it's able to interpret an image, make a new image based on that. And an important note here is that so far in this video, we've only had text inputs and a couple voice inputs, but we haven't had any image input. So I copied and pasted that image there. Moving on to number 13, there are other files you can add to this. So you can have Google Drive, you can connect to OneDrive, or you can upload a document from your computer. It could be a PDF, it could be a spreadsheet, it could be all kinds of different things. So let's say I found this really long report. It's about timberland investment. So I'm going to say, hey, here's a PDF. Can you summarize it for me? It'll read the entire thing. It'll give you a summary very, very quickly as well. And then I can ask further questions about this. So I could say, like, was there any mention of yield curve for southern pine crop? And I want to ask a follow-up question, even though we already know how to do this, but I want to show you something else in this follow-up question. Just a generic question, the value of southern pine per board foot. So it's giving me an answer right here, but there's actually a different way we can do this. So I haven't really talked about this yet in this video. There are different ChatGPT models. These are very confusing because there are so many of them, and there is very likely going to be ChatGPT 5 coming out that just consolidates all of them. But at least for now, ChatGPT 4.0 is almost definitely going to be the one you're using most of the time. But O3 does have more advanced reasoning, which might be what I want to do right here. So if you ever don't like a response, you're like, I wish it just went a little deeper or had more reasoning or was a little faster, for example, you can click on switch model. And for this one, let's say we want to rerun this, but we want to do it with more advanced reasoning, which is ChatGPT 03. Now, this is going to take longer, but you'll see it does give us much more thinking and much more of an analytical answer here. And you'll see it kind of shows what it's doing, what it's thinking about. So it says, hey, like you live in Pennsylvania, we're going to find more localized, values. We're going to look at what we're referencing. Here's the websites we're looking at. You can click on these, by the way, and just learn more about what it's doing. So there we go. Now it tells me what the math is. So it's saying 19 cents per board foot, $25 per ton, or $188 per thousand board feet. So it's pretty interesting that you have these different models and you're going to get very different styles of answers with each of them. Number 14, I actually don't have an audio file to do this, but we could upload an audio file. This could be like a 2-hour long podcast, and we could say like, hey, here's a 2-hour podcast file. Can you transcribe it and summarize the key elements for me? Number 15, this unlocks an entire can of worms here. If we go over to Sora, we click on Sora on the top left, we can actually not only create images, but also create videos here. So we could choose if we're making an image, this is going to be a video. We can choose whatever the aspect ratio is, the resolution of it. So let's just go with the low resolution for now. The length of the video, so maybe a 5 or 10-second video. We could have 1 or 2 or 4 variations of this. And we could choose if we want to have any kind of presets, and then we can hit enter. And this is actually disabling it because it says it is a new account with Sora. So I'd have to use my other account to get this, but let's go with image creation at least for now, see how this works. You can see some of the sample videos that it's been making. Like these look incredibly real. Those are not real people. That is entirely made by AI. You can see all the ones they've made. These are very impressive that what AI is actually able to do now. So that's Sora. That's really a topic for another video though. Then finally getting into number 16, this is the most advanced one in my opinion. If you're trying to do a ton of research, dive really, really deep into something, there's something called deep research down on the bottom. I actually did this earlier. It takes a really long time. It takes like, 15 minutes or more. And it can tell you a lot about any kind of topic. So if you're trying to learn about something, let me search up here. By the way, we have search chats. I did this earlier about sloths. So let's say sloths. I think I said this. Let me scroll to the top. So in order to do this, when you're typing out a prompt, you just click on deep research right there, and then you ask the prompt, and it's going to give you this whole thing. So I said, tell me everything I need to know about a sloth. And it says, what do you want? I said, just everything. And this is what it came up with. You got images in here. We've got references to like National Geographic. You can click on these sources and learn more about where it was actually getting this stuff. Let me close out of that. You can go down here and it tells you, this goes on and on. So we've got just all these links in here. It's citing its sources. Again, it is a lot of Nat Geo on here, but also, some other WWF.org. And this is basically like a small book on what you need to know about sloths. So this could be very useful if you're trying to start a business and you want to know all the details about, growing plants in a greenhouse or anything like that. Yeah, look at that. And then at the bottom, we've got our sources down here. This is the kind of thing I would definitely export as a PDF. One final note before I send you off here, we have a little 3 bonuses on the top right. If you click on your icon, your logo right there, you can customize ChatGPT. So choose what it's going to call you. You can tell it a little bit more about yourself, what traits you have, and it can change some of the responses tailored to you. We also have tasks. So if I go to tasks, I have it sending me AI news every week. You can add other tasks here and have it, every day do a certain thing, just kind of automating things. And if you don't like the tasks, you could just go and remove them. You could pause them, whatever. They are going to be showing up in a single thread. So mine is somewhere down here on the left side. There we go. AI news briefing. And then lastly, we have my GPT. So there are a lot of other GPTs you can have set up. So if I say explore GPTs, there's like Wolfram, there's Canva, we've got Dolly, we've got all these different things. I recommend browsing through here. This is much, much more advanced if you're looking to really become an extreme power user and have something very tailored to your specific job. I didn't want to dive into these too much because it really is so specific that everyone's going to have very different needs. Some people might be very, very interested in, for example, the Canva one, whereas other people might be more interested in the Scholar one. So I recommend browsing through these and seeing what you're able to actually do with these. But essentially each one is going to be like a custom version of ChatGPT that is more tailored to one specific thing. So maybe this one is more focused on scholarly articles, and like if you're doing a lot of research and it's really important that you have like the truest data possible, then this might be a good one for you. If you are a graphic designer and you just want to brainstorm logo creation rather than having a specific prompt every single time, maybe you just want to use this and it's going to make images and you can kind of just modify them like that. All right, so that's my tutorial of how to use ChatGPT in 2025. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, obviously leave that comment down below. I want to know what ChatGPT made for you in that little prompt we had earlier. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.